I'm Shirley ever again.
Yeah, and that I'm Dolly ever.
What were you saying about body control and Systema?
Yeah, I said, oh, the Systema training is great because it takes your body to higher levels of like Vladimir would say, joint freedom and ability to relax under pressure. And breathing exercises and all are brilliant for training you how to do that. However, for a lot of people who haven't been training for a lot of years, and what I have noticed in Systema, and a lot of Systema people will say the same thing, and I'm included from my time with it, is these are people that already know how to do that, okay? That already know how to do a lot of good core solid basic stuff. They have the body mechanics, they have it burned in. But if you're trying to do something realistic and train people in physical self-defense who've never done any kind of sport fighting, they may not be particularly athletic, and you're doing these kind of bogus bullshit self-defense classes like so many martial arts schools do, and sometimes these self-defense companies that come in and they do bogus shit that will get people killed, and the one reason it would get them killed is because A, the dynamics and the flow of what they're doing don't even come close to anything real, coupled with the fact the people are not under pressure of any kind, they're not afraid, their adrenaline's not pumping, they're not body's not being flooded with endorphins because they're in a survival mode, right? So anything they do without that extra pressure is unrealistic. They don't know, see? And a lot of these guys, to me, it's almost criminal, because one guy I know real well, who I was just talking about off camera, has done these classes in hospitals and stuff, and they play, we're gonna do this again, okay. This time you're Sam and I'm Mike, because it's on video, okay. So this is the kind of crap that I see in these classes, and I've seen other guys online putting this down too, and I love you, you guys are my brothers, because you're trying to keep people from getting killed, all right? So Sam grabs my wrist, and I go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, whatever, you know, or he grabs my wrist, and I'm like, oh, and I do that, you know, no pressure, no fear, no adrenaline, super stupid, overly focused on this one thing here, and he's pounding me in the head, kneeing me in the rocks, you know, grabbing me, you know, while I'm focused on this. It's bull. That kind of stuff, if you're going to try kind of stuff like that for real, you better have trained for a while, because you need to understand the dynamics. If you're trying to do a wrist grab, you better get to the outside of the guy, or you better be striking him if you're going to stay to the inside. And they're not doing any of that because they know that takes too long. So they give these people in these classes, especially I've seen this with nurses and stuff, and it's like they spend however many hundreds of dollars for this bullshit, and then, so they know I'm not a bank robber, and then nobody does follow-ups that I know of, except me over the years, to test people, even in 3 months. And I'm doing things that are more realistic and more natural, and see what they retain. Because you constantly give the speech in the class, what you train is what you do, right? What you train is what you do. If you don't train, then you don't do nothing. You're probably back to your original thing, which would be what? Freeze or run. Generally, the running's probably better, depending on the environment and what you're doing, but yeah. Fight or flight, right? Or go crazy. You know, some people go crazy. A lot of times that's better, but it just depends. And there's elements of intuition there that have to be involved. So this is why you have to do things, if you're training core self-defense work that will put the person under pressure. You get to a stage in that training after they develop some ability to move, like what we've been showing Joe today. And then you put them under pressure with it, and you wear a little protective equipment, and you put it on them, and let's see how they are under that pressure, right? Or you know, people who do a lot of knife disarms and stuff, and what we've learned, let's see, this is my 51st year now doing this, and I've done a lot of Filipino knife work, other styles of knife work, and what you often see is that probably 97% of the really cool drills and maneuvers do what Dan just mentioned. What happens to it? Most of them, when you put pressure and the guy comes in hard and fast,
They fall apart.
they fall apart. Why?
Well,
Take
first
your
of all,
mask
you
off.
don't. Oh. Well, first of all, you may not remember exactly what it is you need to do at the time.
Because why? Why would you forget it?
Because pressure. Usually your brain is just focused on whatever it is in the immediate that comes to mind. And
Yeah,
something
so but
complicated.
that's the word I was looking for, complicated or
Not to
intricate.
mention the fact that the variables will change constantly. Maybe
Yeah.
it's not presented to you exactly the same way it was in the drill.
Right, see, and that's what we just talked about it by starting with a wrist lock, really? You know, that's far too complicated. I mean, if, look, now you can put it back on. To get to the wrist lock, what does the guy have to do first? He has to approach you. He has to come from behind, and he has to grab your wrist, or he has to come up the front and grab your wrist. So they're leaving out the closing the gap, right? They're leaving out the distance part of what has to happen to even get to the wrist. Because if you succeed right there in what we call the close of the distance, right, we're not getting to the stupid wrist lock in the first place, so the wrist grab, are we? So what did we just practice doing? We just practiced doing a nice simple thing, which is regardless of whether a guy's coming in striking, kicking, or some kind of a grappling move, keep it simple and direct. So he comes in, whatever he wants to do. I'm just coming in. And all I'm doing is I'm creating this little frame so that, come in again somehow, I don't care. So that ideally, I'm controlling the center line of this thing, and I'm up the middle. See, this is great, because look, could you see this, bud?
Yeah, I'm getting it.
See right here, if he's squeezing on me, he's trying to grapple with me, which would probably be what would happen at this point. It would be an instinct. See how this is called creating a frame. See what I'm doing here? I'm stabilizing him to my body. So he can't do much with this. On the other side, I'm doing something similar. I got a frame over here. I'm keeping him from doing much with this arm at this moment in time. And I can obviously, and any time I can collapse and I'll blast that jaw hinge with that elbow, and then I can go and do whatever I want from there. But the point of it is, it makes more sense if you're going to teach people who have never trained, and they're probably not going to train a lot, but if you give them stuff that's basic enough and can convince them to at least review it every week with a partner, this idea here, come on in. I'm going to come in, I'm not going to run away because I don't have time to run away, he's already on me. And I'm in this position. And as we were doing earlier, you can work so much stuff, but one of the most basic things to do when you get inside, no matter how he's grabbing you, is hit him, work him with knees, work him with elbows, and just keep blasting the guy with the parts of your body that are strong, solid bony masses, right? Solid bony masses. Throwing hand strikes, as anybody that's done sport, fighting, martial arts stuff, can tell you, frequently you get injured, and usually it's right here. People, especially guys that do hand wraps and gloves, I went through all that. You get sloppy, you don't have to develop a really good strong wrist as much because they're all firmed up with all the hand wraps and shit you're wearing, and you have gloves on. Well, you're not going to have all that shit on in the street, plus you don't want it. You want your fingers free, because then when the guy's grabbing you and stuff, you know, you can go here, you can clinch and do stuff to control him, to hit him, right? You know, you want your fingers free, but punches, plus remember, let's think about this in terms of range and dynamics. If he's punching me, look at all the exposed surface area and all the exposed joints and opening up his ribs, right? But instead of punching me, he barrels in and gets a lot closer, and he goes right to the elbows, strikes. Yeah, see? Because what did we just work on? If the guy's grabbing me, if he does grab me, I can still just throw elbow strike. I don't have to learn a complicated goddamn technique to free myself. He grabs me, right? It's like, I'm just going to come forward anyway. I'll just move, and I'm just going to keep the motion of the bending of the elbow and the bringing the shoulder over. I'll break the grip, and I'll just get in. My goal is to get up the middle, pound this guy with my bony mass weapons, which minimizes the chance of me getting any kind of a serious injury from my striking surface. However, which most of you guys who've all done stuff for a while, on the other hand, just be passive a minute. I throw punches and I'm all excited, and I hit, and he moves his head, and I hit some hard bony mass, and you see a lot of this stuff will happen. Because if you're going to work punches, I give Systema a lot of credit for this. A lot of push-ups on the wrists, and there's other guys that do it in other arts too, but you want to get those tendons really strong, and to be able to do a proper push-up on your wrists, what has to happen? They've got to be in a proper position. If you bend it a little, what's going to happen? Wah! Unless you've done a lot of the, like a lot of Vladimir's and other people's, Martin, a lot of guys, you know, we've done them before, where you do the wrist push-ups to help strengthen for that when that happens. But that's a lot of extra work, and you're trying to cram course some law enforcement people or security people or anybody, and trying to give them something, a practical way to train and burn in some good solid basic stuff in a weekend, like maybe 15 or 16 hours. You got to stay away from all that complex stuff. It won't work. I've gone back and I've tested people who I've put through classes, and that's how a process of elimination over many years figured out simple, simple, simple. Anybody can remember to do this. You walk around practicing that, right? Mm-hmm. So here we are, and it's something, this guy's coming at me, it's like, they just go up, right? And I'm in here, right? We can start all this, right? He goes for low grappling, and same thing. See, I can frame out, and I'm controlling the center line again. I'm still keeping him to the outside as much as I can, because what? It exposes all these targets, central nervous system, on down, all the major organs. He's wide open, I can start working. And all I got to remember to do is to move my arms and keep them in this position, moving, so that I can go from high to low to center and drill the shit out of it. It's not complicated, right? Okay.
I'm serenading us.
I said okay, we're done.